In this video, we are going to analyse Trump's rambling presser. I'm just going to get straight into it and I'll give you my thoughts at the end.
It's a bit of a rambling performance, isn't it, Simon?
It is a very rambling performance, Ian. It is a recalcitrant performance. It's quite an angry performance. I mean, we've had three separate moments so far where he's basically accused by implication his colleagues within the cabinet of not getting enough positive press for his achievements over the course of the last year, whether it's with regard to ICE operations to sweep murderers and criminals, the worst of the worst off the streets of America, whether it's his what he described as his finest moment, the lowering of drug prices, prescription drug prices across the country. He says you hear zero talk about that. He's talked about ending stagflation, bringing about a situation in which the trade deficit in the United States has been slashed by 77% in 1 year. And he's gone on to say, maybe I have bad public relations people, we're not getting it across. But then he's also sought, I think, to tell Americans that what they are seeing with their own eyes, they are not actually seeing with their own eyes. I mean, the Biden administration was, of course, very good at that as well. But he insists that the economy is thriving because the stock market is up and because people's 401k retirement funds are up. And there is truth to both of those claims, but people don't feel that because if you're not able to access your 401k retirement account because you're not 59 and a half years old yet, and if you're still going to the supermarket every weekend and encountering rising prices at the checkouts, that stock market boom isn't doing anything for you, at least in terms of what you feel in your pocket. And pollsters are clearly revealing that people aren't buying the argument that the economy is thriving simply because the stock market is up. Nonetheless, he has repeated that over the course of the last half an hour or so. We haven't heard a thing yet about Greenland or NATO. I'm sure we will get to that as soon as he throws this open to questions. But at the moment, he is leafing through a massive binder of achievements that the White House claims he has notched up. 365 wins in 365 days. And he's leafing through that document. And I have to say, in not a particularly compelling way, trying to crow about some of the achievements that undoubtedly his image makers want him to be talking about on this day, 1 year to the day since he returned to the Oval Office, just on the issue of whether he's ill or not. And I know many of our listeners have been texting in saying that they think he sounds unwell. He's definitely very tired. He was at a football game in Florida last night. He didn't get back to the White House until around 3 o'clock in the morning. Then he engaged in all of those social media postings, including the attack on the Prime Minister and the British government over the Chagos Islands deal. So it's not clear how much sleep he got last night. And within hours, he's due to leave the White House and head to Davos for those all-important crisis talks with European leaders. So far, I would say from what we've heard, he's not sounding generally like a man in a mood for compromise. But let's see where this goes when he gets on to a conversation about international affairs, which, if he doesn't just ramble onto it himself, reporters will definitely want to ask him about once he takes questions.
These are accomplishments. We have a lot of accomplishments, and as you know, this is the anniversary, first anniversary, January 20th, and it's been an amazing period of time. We have a book that I'm not going to read to you, but these are the accomplishments of what we've produced, all page after page after page, individual things. I could stand here and read it for a week and we wouldn't be finished.
Simon, I'm looking at your face here, and you're looking a little bit perplexed about what to make of what the president has been saying over the last, 55 minutes?
Well, I'm just also noting that on page 21 of the document that he has handed out to reporters, citing the 365 achievements and wins that he's had for the United States, number 245, the 245th win over the last 365 days occurred when he signed an executive order to end the use of paper straws. Now, he hasn't yet mentioned that during the course of this presentation, but he's mentioned a heck of a lot of other things. I think that there was a bit of news in there, accidentally. I think he committed a bit of news there that we were just hearing when he talked about the Board of Peace, where he said, "I wish the United Nations could do more. We wouldn't need the Board of Peace." That is the first public intimation by President Trump that he sees this Board of Peace now, which of course was set up to produce some sort of structure to govern post-conflict Gaza. He sees it as much more than that now. He sees it as an alternative to the United Nations Security Council. So that, I think, is going to worry the Prime Minister, French President Emmanuel Macron, and other world leaders who have so far said they won't be forking out $1 billion and sending it to President Trump to join the Board of Peace. Fresh questions in all of that for Tony Blair, the man who said when he was departing Florida last night that he doesn't care about the Nobel Peace Prize, was once again going on and on and on about how he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. He claimed that the leaders of every country whose wars, and they weren't wars, many of them, that he had resolved had nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. That's actually factually inaccurate. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi didn't back him for the Nobel Peace Prize, and it cost the Indian Prime Minister his relationship with President Trump. He clearly has forgotten the name of Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, because he now keeps referring to her as that woman. But he says that he was very grateful that she decided that she didn't deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, but he deserved it. There have been extraordinary comments about the killing in Minneapolis of 37-year-old motorist Renee Nicole Good. He described it as a tragedy, and he then went on to say, extraordinarily, that he hopes that particularly Nicole Good's father, who reporters say was a Trump supporter in the 2024 presidential election, is still a Trump supporter, despite what happened to his daughter at the hands of that trigger-happy ICE agent, who, of course, is not being investigated by the Department of Justice in relation to her killing. And the other big news, Ian, coming out of this, and I am not making this up, is that he has revealed that when he changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, he actually suggested to his aides that it should be changed to the Gulf of Trump. The aides pushed back and told him that they didn't think that was a good idea, so he went with the Gulf of America. But now he thinks it's not too late to change the name from the Gulf of America to the Gulf of Trump. I have no idea what the Prime Minister and European leaders, if they are trying to sit through this and watch it, I have no idea what they're making of it. I see CNN has now dipped out of it. They've given up at almost, I guess, the 1 hour mark. He's not sounding... First of all, he doesn't sound particularly cogent, as I think everyone can hear. And secondly, he's not at all sounding like a man in a mood for compromise or in much of a mood for dialogue in Davos. But again, if he ever gets to questions and answers, we may hear, if there are still reporters in the room that are going to ask cogent questions and trenchant questions, as opposed to the compliant pro-Trump propagandists who swell the ranks in the White House briefing room these days, we may get some pressing questions about what he's going to do over the issue of Greenland.
Now, Donald Trump also says he's done more for NATO than any other person, but has questioned whether other NATO member states would really come to America's aid if the US asked for it. Well, again, he doesn't know his history, because the US did ask for NATO members' aid back in 2001, and they willingly gave it. So I don't know what he's on about there.
Well, I mean, he doesn't know his history on any of this stuff, Ian. I mean, there's been, I mean, you can't, a fact checker couldn't even keep up with the nonsense that has been spouted during the course of this press conference. I think it's also important to say very clearly here, you know, if this was Joe Biden making this kind of an appearance, or any other previous occupant of the Oval Office, we would be asking ourselves whether members of his cabinet shouldn't be having a conversation behind the scenes about whether he's okay and whether it's all right for him to continue in office for another 3 years. I mean, we discussed the 25th Amendment that, of course, allows members of the cabinet to remove a president if he's considered to be suffering from some kind of disability that prevents him from staying in office. We talked about that when Joe Biden was in office and was clearly flagging, and arguably his cabinet should have done a lot more to persuade him to drop out of the presidential election much earlier than he did.
Well, you and I talked about that, but his cabinet certainly didn't, and the American media certainly didn't.
No, absolutely not. But I think it is important to make the point, as we did with Joe Biden, that this does not look today like a man who is capable of serving another 3 years with his finger on the nuclear trigger in the Oval Office. And I know there will be no conversation behind the scenes because, of course, there are no restraining influences within his cabinet. And it's got to be very, very worrying to all of America's allies, if they are still allies in Europe, that as things stand tonight, we're only 1/4 of the way through Donald Trump's second term.
Nobody's done more for NATO than I have, as I said before, in every way. Getting them to go up to 5% of GDP was something that nobody thought was possible, and pay. At 2% they weren't paying. At 5% they are paying. And they're buying a lot of things from us, and they're giving them, I guess, to Ukraine. That's up to them, but they're giving them to whoever they're giving them to, but they're buying a lot. I think that we will work something out where NATO is going to be very happy and where we're going to be very happy. But we need it for security purposes. We need it for national security and even world security. It's very important. How about it?
The entire event lasted 104 minutes, so about an hour and 3/4. I mean, on Greenland, he insisted that he's not ruling, didn't take any options off the table. When he was asked how he was going to acquire Greenland, he said, "You'll find out. I think something is going to happen that's going to be very good for everyone." And then he went off on the riff about nobody has ever done more for NATO than him. But he says, we will work something out where NATO is going to be happy and we are going to be very happy, although precisely what the contours of that look like, he did not go into details. When it was put to him that the people of Greenland don't want to join the United States, he said, when I speak to the people of Greenland, I'm sure they will be thrilled. He made it clear that he is not travelling to Paris from Davos to accept Emmanuel Macron's invitation to a meeting of the G7, and several times during the press conference, while he said he liked Emmanuel Macron, he dismissed the French president, insisting that he's not going to be in power for very much longer. And he made it repeatedly clear, number one, that he sees the Board of Peace taking over from the United Nations Security Council and becoming a prime mover on the geopolitical stage. And number two, that he is absolutely furious that he hasn't got a Nobel Peace Prize and he is penalising Norway as a result. So that's 104 minutes of my life I'm never getting back.
I mean, this is what happens when there's no guardrails and a man like Trump stands at a podium for nearly 2 hours, and CNN taps out about the 60-minute mark. And the only coherent takeaway is that he wanted to name a body of water after himself. And he is just on a warpath with virtually every single country in the world at this point. And he's losing allies by the day. And on this Nobel Peace Prize obsession, it's just a bit ridiculous at this point. He says he doesn't care, but then spends significant time explaining why everyone nominated him. And reality check, they didn't. And, you know, Modi refused to kind of support him, and that cost him a relationship with Trump. And Trump keeps also referring to Maria Corina Machado as that woman, which again is just really disrespectful. And the most chilling part of this all is when he's asked about Renee Nicole Good. Trump calls it a tragedy, but then immediately pivots to hoping her father is still a Trump supporter, despite what happened to his daughter. It's kind of not seeking justice, not any accountability, but he's just worried about, does he still vote for me? And the biggest point about here as well is that, if this was Joe Biden, there would be absolute outroar and calls for him to, step down because he doesn't seem fit for purpose, and seems like he's kind of, there was a lot of claims about dementia and stuff. But with Trump, for some reason, he is kind of still going on unchallenged. And, the most chilling part of this all is, we're only 1/4 through his term. But let me know what you guys make of Trump at this point in time. I'm really keen to get your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next one.